Let's go straight to Ottawa now. The Prime Minister is addressing the House of Commons. Let's listen.
Mr. Speaker, people are troubled by what they've been witnessing this past week. Young, old, Indigenous, newcomers, they're asking themselves what is happening in this country. They're asking what lies ahead for themselves, for their communities, for Canada. They know that these protests are serious, that this is a critical moment for our country and for our future. And so do I. On all sides, people are upset and frustrated. I get it. It's understandable, because this is about things that matter: rights and livelihoods, the rule of law, and our democracy. To
those who are feeling the consequences of the blockades and protests, I know that you are going through difficult times. Rest assured that our government is working hard to find a solution. Our government's priority is to resolve the situation peacefully, but also to protect rule of law in our country. We will always defend that principle.
It is time, past time, for this situation to be resolved. But what we are facing was not created overnight. It was not created because we have embarked upon a path of reconciliation recently in our history. It is because for too long in our history, for too many years, we failed to do so. So finding a solution will not be simple. It will take determination, hard work, and cooperation. There is no relationship more important to Canada than the one with Indigenous peoples. And today, as Prime Minister, I am once again formally extending my hand in partnership and trust. Over the last 11 days, our government has been working on a path forward, even as many have been saying we should give up. Because we know what is at stake. We know that we cannot afford to fail. So we are creating a space for peaceful, honest dialogue with willing partners. As we heard this morning from Mohawk leaders and from National Chief Perry Bellegarde, we need to resolve this through dialogue and mutual respect. To the Wet'suwet'en and Mohawk nations and Indigenous leaders across the country, we are listening. We are not asking that you stop standing up for your communities, your rights, and for what you believe. We only ask that you be willing to work with the federal government as a partner in finding solutions. You remind us, rightly so, that too often trust has been betrayed in the history of Indigenous negotiations with Canadian governments. In fact, that underlines the difficulty of solving this situation today. But our common ground is the desire to arrive at solutions. We cannot resolve this alone. Just like we need Indigenous leaders to be partners, we also need Canadians to show both resolve and collaboration. Everyone has a stake in getting this right. Soyons clairs. Notre gouvernement va continuer de travailler.
Let's be clear. Our government will continue to work night and day to peacefully find a solution. In the past, we have seen just how quickly these situations can change. I know that we all want to find a solution. And at the same time, we must prevent the situation from worsening. Yesterday, I again convened the incident response group to discuss the situation and our path forward. I have also spoken with premiers across the country of the impact of blockades on workers, farmers, businesses across the country.
The Minister of Indigenous Services met with representatives from Tyendinaga as well as other members of the Mohawk Nation. And I have committed to the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs that the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations will meet with them anytime. And I hope that the offer will be accepted. This is our opportunity now to bring these perspectives together. Because, Mr. Speaker, what is the alternative? Do we want to become a country of irreconcilable differences, where people talk but refuse to listen, where politicians are ordering police to arrest people, a country where people think they can tamper with rail lines and endanger lives? This is simply unacceptable. We cannot solve these problems on the margins. That is not the way forward. I know that people's patience is running short. We need to find a solution, and we need to find it now. I have spoken in this House about how my father faced protests over the debate about Aboriginal and treaty rights in the Constitution. Over 30 years later, many of those questions still linger, which is why our pace of change must be even faster. And not only in this situation. Despite having invested more than any other government to right historic wrongs, to close persistent gaps, we know that there is still more, much more, to be done. It is unacceptable that there are people who still don't have access to clean drinking water, that Indigenous women and girls still go missing and are murdered, that there are people without housing and good education. It is unacceptable that Indigenous peoples are still denied rights and lands, Mr. Speaker. So we need to keep finding solutions. And that can only happen by working together and by listening. Monsieur le Président, en tant que pays,
Mr. Speaker, as a country,
nous sommes appelés à choisir la marche à suivre.
we are called upon to find a path forward. It is our job to choose respect and communication. We must not embark upon a path where we refuse to listen or where we give in to hostilities. That is not the solution.
There are those who would want us to act in haste, who want us to boil this down to slogans and ignore the complexities, who think that using force is helpful. It is not. Patience may be in short supply, and that makes it more valuable than ever. Indigenous rights, climate action, law and order, building a clean economy. We will not achieve these things by degrading our